The great hall of Zathra was built from black stone, sharp and cold like the hearts of the warriors who gathered there. Hundreds of alien warrior women filled the room, their armor shining with silver patterns, their weapons resting across their knees. They were tall, strong, and proud, known across the galaxy for conquering planets, crushing armies and leaving nothing behind but silence. At the center of the hall stood their leader, General Kareth, a woman feared even by her own kind. Her voice echoed through the chamber as she laughed. Earth, a little blue planet, weak and soft, filled with fragile humans. They dare call themselves a people? They are nothing. Nothing but dust waiting to be blown away. The crowd roared with cruel laughter. Their mocking voices rolled like thunder. Some clapped their claws against their armor. Others slammed their spears against the ground. The sound was deafening. "Humans cannot fight," one warrior woman shouted. Her voice carried high above the others. "Their bones are brittle, their bodies slow, and their minds small. They do not belong in the galaxy of warriors," another stood, lifting her curved blade into the air. "One strike from us would shatter their bones. Their planet would burn in a single campaign. Earth is nothing more than a training ground for children." The laughter grew louder, filling the hall until even the guards at the doors smirked. To them, humans were insects, weak creatures hiding in the shadow of greater empires. But in the far corner of the hall, one warrior woman did not laugh. Her name was Soraka, younger than most, but her eyes were sharp and her mind restless. She stepped forward, her voice cutting through the noise. "You mock Earth too quickly. I have studied their wars. I have read their history, these humans. They are not what they seem." The room grew quieter, curious but not respectful. General Kareth narrowed her eyes. "What are you saying, Soraka? That these soft little beings can match us? Do you dare defend them?" Soraka did not flinch, though the weight of many angry stares pressed against her. "I do not defend them," she said calmly. "I warn you, humans are strange. They are small, but they endure. They are weak. But they adapt, they lose battles, but somehow they win wars. I believe mocking them is dangerous." The crowd erupted again, this time with harsher laughter. One warrior struck her shield and shouted, "Dangerous to us? A human cannot even lift our blades. How could they be dangerous?" Another leaned forward, her grin sharp as a knife. "Perhaps Soraka wishes to take a human mate. That is why she defends them." The hall burst into cruel howls of laughter. Soraka's face tightened, but her eyes never wavered. "Laugh if you must," she said, her voice steady. "But remember this. When you face them, you will not laugh. You will understand too late what humans truly are." The laughter rolled again. But quieter now. A small seed of doubt had slipped into the room. Though most ignored it, General Kareth raised her hand. And the noise died down. "Enough," she declared. "Tomorrow we will prove this. A human has been captured. He will be brought to the arena. Let us see if Soraka's warning has any truth." The hall trembled with excitement. The warriors beat their weapons against the floor, chanting, "The arena, the arena, the arena." Their voices shook the black stone walls. Soraka stood in silence, her heart heavy. She knew the human would be thrown into the pit against their best fighters. She knew the crowd expected him to be crushed within moments. But in her chest there was a strange feeling, a whisper that told her this human might not fall so easily. The great torches burned brighter, their flames licking the high ceiling. Shadows danced along the walls like silent witnesses. Outside, the cold stars watched over the empire. And far away, Earth turned slowly in the dark. A planet mocked, belittled, and forgotten, yet waiting for the moment when one human would make the galaxy fall silent. And so the night ended with cruel laughter, with cheers for tomorrow's spectacle. None of them knew that what awaited in the arena would not be comedy, but revelation for when the first clash came. Earth's name would no longer be a joke. The next day, the great arena of Zathra shook with noise. Tens of thousands of alien warrior women filled the stone seats, their armor glinting under the twin suns. The air was hot, carrying the smell of dust, blood, and burning oil. It was not a place of justice, it was a place of spectacle, a place where warriors proved themselves by destroying the weak. At the center stood the wide pit, its walls carved with battle scars. Weapons lay scattered across the sand, blades, chains and spears from past fights, stained with dark blood that never washed away. General Kareth marched into the highest balcony, her shadow stretching long across the pit. Her voice thundered, carried by giant speakers. "Today we show the galaxy the truth of Earth. Today we crush their weakness for all to see." The crowd roared in agreement, some banging their weapons, Others shouting challenges. It was more than a fight. It was entertainment, humiliation, and domination rolled into one. Guards dragged something into the pit, something small compared to the warriors. The crowd leaned forward to see. It was a human. He walked on his own feet, though chains bound his wrists. His clothes were torn from travel and capture. Dust clung to his face, yet his eyes were calm. A ripple of surprise moved through the crowd. They had expected fear, trembling, begging. But this human stood tall, even with chains. His gaze swept the arena without flinching. General Kareth sneered. "This is the best Earth can send? A frail man with no armor, no blade? Watch closely, for this is what a human looks like before death." The warriors laughed, their voices a storm of cruel delight. Soraka sat among them, silent. Her hands tightened on her knees. She searched the human's face for fear, but found none. Instead, she saw something dangerous: patience. The first challenger stepped forward, a towering warrior woman with crimson armor and a spear longer than the human's body. She slammed the spear on the sand, sparks bursting from its tip. "I will end this in one strike," she declared. The chains fell from the human's wrists. Clattering on the ground, the guards stepped back, leaving him unarmed in the pit. The alien warrior rushed forward, her spear slicing the air with deadly speed. The crowd screamed in joy, expecting blood, but the human moved. Not fast like lightning, not strong like a beast, but precise. He twisted just enough, letting the spear graze past him. Sand flew under his boots as he rolled aside. His hand grabbed a broken chain from the ground. The crowd gasped, their laughter stumbled. The alien warrior snarled and swung again, this time harder, aiming for his chest. The human's chain whipped forward, striking the shaft of the spear. The impact jarred the warrior's grip. The weapon slipped, she stumbled, her strength suddenly useless against such a small trick. The arena fell quiet. Only the clash of metal rang out. The human's eyes never changed, calm, sharp, calculating. He moved not like prey, but like someone who had studied every motion. Every weakness. The warrior roared and swung her fists. The human ducked, rolled, and struck back with the chain, wrapping it around her ankle. With one hard pull, he dragged her off balance. Her massive body slammed against the sand with a thundering crash. The crowd erupted, not in laughter this time, but in shock. The human dropped the chain and stepped back. He did not strike her while she was down. He simply waited, his breathing steady, his gaze fixed. It was as if he was daring the next challenger to come. General Kareth's lips tightened. Her laughter was gone. She leaned forward, her eyes burning with something new. Anger mixed with doubt, Soraka whispered under her breath. "I warned you." Another warrior jumped into the pit, her blade flashing. The crowd roared again, hungry for blood. But this time the laughter carried fear at its edges. A crack in their pride. The human flexed his hands. Ready once more, he had no armor, no shield, no empire behind him, but in that moment, standing against the might of a warrior race, he carried something greater, something the alien women had never seen before. The quiet, unshakable courage of Earth. The challenge had begun, and the galaxy was watching. The arena was no longer laughing. The fall of the first warrior had shaken them, and now a heavy silence lingered over the crowd. The human stood still in the sand, his chest rising slowly with each breath, his eyes calm but sharp. It was as if he belonged there, as if the arena had always been his ground. The second challenger leaped into the pit. She was taller, stronger, and faster than the first. Her armor gleamed with blue steel, and in her hands she held twin curved blades. Her movements were like flowing water. Deadly and graceful, the crowd roared again, desperate to restore their pride. "This one will cut him apart," someone shouted. "She will show us humans are nothing," another cried. But beneath their voices was a crack, a thread of unease. The warrior woman circled the human, her blades flashing in the sun. The human said nothing. His hands were empty, his stance loose, but his eyes tracked every step she took. It was predator against prey, or so it seemed. Then she struck. Her twin blades moved like lightning, one high, one low, aiming to end him in a single motion. The crowd gasped, already certain the human would fall. But he moved again, not with speed like hers, but with timing, with precision. He shifted to the side, letting the first blade slice the air past his shoulder. He ducked low as the second blade missed his chest by inches. The sand sprayed as he rolled and rose behind her. The warrior spun, her eyes flashing with anger. She swung again, her blades a blur of steel. But the human stayed just beyond her reach. His feet sliding across the sand, his movements tight, efficient. Every dodge was perfect, every motion wasted nothing. The crowd had fallen into silence now. They leaned forward, their breaths caught. This was no weak creature stumbling for his life. This was someone who fought with purpose. The warrior roared and lunged, her blades crossing in a deadly X aimed for his throat. The human bent low, scooping up a broken spear shaft from the sand. In one smooth motion, he blocked the strike, the wooden shaft splintering under the force, but it held long enough for him to twist. Stepping into her guard, he drove his shoulder into her chest. Knocking her back, she staggered, her blades clashing against the ground, sparks flying. The human did not press the attack. He stood tall, holding the broken spear like a staff. His chest rose and fell, his eyes locked on hers. It was not rage that burned there, but something colder, discipline. The crowd's silence deepened. General Kareth leaned forward in her balcony, her fingers digging into the stone rail. Her jaw tightened as she whispered, "Impossible." The warrior snarled. Shamed before her sisters, she spun in fury, her blades cutting the air in wild arcs. The human stepped back, deflecting one strike with the broken staff, dodging another with a twist of his body. Each time she grew more reckless, more desperate, and each time he stayed calm. It was as if he could see her anger, measure it, and use it against her. Finally, with a cry of rage, she swung both blades overhead in a crushing strike. The human slid forward instead of back. His staff snapped upward, wedging between her arms. He twisted with all his strength, forcing her blades wide apart. Her chest was open, exposed. The human raised his knee and slammed it into her stomach. The warrior gasped, the air rushing out of her lungs. She collapsed to her knees, her blade slipping from her hands into the sand. The arena was silent, utterly silent, not one laugh, not one cheer, only the sound of the warrior gasping on the ground and the human standing tall above her. He did not strike the final blow. He did not need to. By refusing to kill, he made her defeat even sharper, more humiliating. The crowd could no longer call him weak. Their laughter had died, replaced by fear and something they had never expected to feel toward a human. Respect? Soraka's heart pounded as she watched. She whispered to herself, "This is what I saw in their history. This is what makes them dangerous. They don't just fight with strength. They fight with will." General Kareth slammed her fist against the stone rail. Her voice thundered through the arena. "Another challenger. Send another." But her voice betrayed something the crowd had never heard before. Not confidence, but desperation. The human stood in the center of the pit, broken spear in his hands, his eyes calm. Around him lay silence, heavy and unshakable. The first clash was over, but the war of pride had just begun. And for the first time in centuries, the alien warrior women of Zathra felt a chill run down their spines. The arena was no longer the same. What began as a place of laughter and mockery had turned into a pit of silence. Two alien warriors had fallen, not dead, but defeated by a single human. The crowd sat frozen, their voices locked in their throats. The human stood in the center of the sand pit, breathing slow and steady. His broken spear shaft rested in his hands like a weapon forged for him. He had no armor, no banners, no empire to protect him, yet he stood taller than the giants around him. General Kareth rose from her seat, her silver cape trailing behind her. Her voice cut across the silence like a blade. "Enough of these games. If one warrior cannot end him, then let 3 test him." A wave of shock passed through the crowd. 3 at once? Even for warriors of Zathra, this was no small challenge. But the silence soon turned into a roar. The crowd demanded blood. They wanted to see the human crushed at last. Soraka's chest tightened. Her hands dug into the stone bench where she sat. She wanted to shout, to stop this madness, but she knew her voice would be drowned in the storm of thousands. Still in her heart, she whispered, "Survive, human. Show them again." 3 warriors leapt into the pit. Each carried a different weapon, one a massive war hammer, another a spear tipped with glowing crystal, the third a sword longer than the human's body. They spread out, circling him like wolves around prey. The human did not flinch. His eyes moved from one to the other, reading their stances, measuring their steps. He gripped the broken spear tighter, his breathing calm. The first to strike was the hammer bearer. She roared and swung down with all her strength. The ground shook, sand exploding into the air, but the human had already moved. His body slipped to the side, the hammer smashing only earth. Before she could lift it again, he jabbed the broken spear shaft into her ribs. The strike was sharp and fast, not enough to kill, but enough to make her stumble back. The second warrior lunged with her glowing spear, the crystal tip burning with energy. The human ducked, letting the strike pass over his shoulder. The heat scorched his skin, but he pushed forward. Stepping inside her reach, he slammed his elbow into her jaw, the sound cracking through the arena. The third warrior swung her great sword with a howl. The blade cut the air where the human had stood. But he rolled aside, sand sticking to his clothes. He rose, the broken spear shaft in his hand once again ready. The crowd could not breathe. 3 against 1, and yet the human still moved. Still endured each dodge, each counter. Carried not desperation, but calculation. He was not fighting like prey. He was fighting like someone who had studied battles his whole life. The 3 warriors regrouped, circling him tighter. Their pride burned hotter with every second, to be slowed, to be touched, to be defied by a human. It was a wound sharper than any blade. They attacked together. The hammer swung from the left, the glowing spear from the right, the great sword from above. It was a storm of steel and fire. The human's eyes narrowed. He ducked under the hammer, spun away from the spear, lifted his broken shaft just in time to deflect the sword. The force drove him to his knees. But he did not fall. With a grunt, he pushed upward, twisting the shaft to lock the sword. Sand flew as he slid behind the sword-bearer. With sudden strength, he swept her legs from beneath her. She fell hard, the ground trembling as her sword slipped away. The crowd gasped, the sound sharp and fearful. The hammer-bearer roared, charging again. The human twisted, his broken shaft slamming into her wrist. Her hammer tumbled into the sand, and before she could recover, he shoved her back with a hard kick. Only the spear-bearer remained, her weapon glowing bright. She screamed in fury and thrust forward. The human sidestepped, the crystal tip slicing past his ribs, leaving a burn but no mortal wound in that instant. He grabbed the shaft of her spear. Twisting it hard, the weapon tore from her grip, sparks dancing as it hit the sand, and there he stood, the human, holding her glowing spear in his hands. For the first time, he had a weapon worthy of the arena. The crowd erupted, not in laughter, not in triumph, but in something else. They had never seen such defiance, never seen such endurance. General Kareth's jaw tightened, her knuckles white against the stone rail. This was not how the story was meant to unfold. This was not humiliation. This was revelation. Soraka's eyes widened, her chest rising fast. She whispered, "This is the turning point. This is when they finally see." The human raised the glowing spear, the light shining across the pit, and the warriors who mocked Earth, who laughed at humanity, could only watch in silence. The arena burned with silence. Tens of thousands of alien warrior women leaned forward in their seats, eyes wide, mouths shut. The human now stood in the center of the pit, holding the glowing crystal spear once meant to end him. Its light danced across his face, making him look not like prey, but like a warrior carved from fire and shadow. The 3 challengers lay scattered on the sand, groaning in pain, their pride shattered. For the first time in living memory, warriors of Zathra had been beaten by one man, not by brute strength, not by sheer power, but by something else, something none of them understood, yet all of them feared. General Kareth rose from her seat, her silver armor catching the sun's light. Her voice shook with controlled fury. "Do you see? He is only lucky, only tricks and chance. This is no strength. This is no glory." But her words rang hollow. Even the crowd felt it. Luck could not move like that. Luck could not survive against 3 at once. Something else lived inside this human, and it was beginning to reveal itself. The human gripped the spear. Testing its weight, he had no smile, no taunt. He did not mock them the way they mocked him. He simply stood ready, his breathing calm, his eyes sharp. He carried himself like a soldier who had seen countless wars, and maybe that was exactly what he was. The next challenger entered. This one was older, her armor painted black with red marks of victory. She was no fool. Her steps were careful, her stance measured. She studied him the way he studied her. The crowd grew restless, whispering, "Can she do it?" One asked. "He is only human, he must fall eventually," another muttered. But no one spoke with certainty. The warrior charged, her blade striking fast and sharp. The human blocked with the glowing spear, sparks exploding with every clash. Their movements were different, hers heavy. His light she struck with raw power. He answered with precision. Every strike she made was met by an answer. Every gap she left was nearly punished. Minutes passed, sweat running down their faces. The alien warrior's strength began to slow, her arms heavy from swinging her massive blade. But the human's eyes stayed calm. His movements never wasted. He fought like a man who knew that endurance. Not strength decided wars. Then it happened. She swung wide, desperate for a finishing strike. The human stepped inside her guard, twisting the spear. The glowing crystal cut across her chest plate. Sparks flying as she stumbled back, she fell to her knees, her blade dropping into the sand. The crowd gasped again, another warrior fallen. Another silence spreading. The human lowered the spear but did not strike again. Instead he spoke, his voice low but carried by the arena speakers. You think strength is power, you think size is victory. But you do not understand Earth. His words froze them. The very sound of his voice shook the air. On Earth we are fragile, yes, our bones break. Our blood spills, but when we fall we rise, when we bleed. We learn. When we are crushed we grow harder. You mock us because you see weakness, but that weakness is our strength. The crowd sat in stunned silence. Alien eyes widened, alien hearts trembled. No one had ever heard a human speak with such fire in the pit. General Kareth's lips curled into a snarl. Do not listen to his lies, she roared. But even she felt the weight of his words. Something inside her, something she never admitted, whispered that he was right. Soraka, from her seat, pressed a hand over her chest. She could feel her heart racing. Her breath shallow, she whispered, "This is the revelation. This is what they were too blind to see. This is humanity's gift." The human raised the glowing spear high. The light spilled over the arena walls, across the silent warriors. And in that moment he was not a prisoner. Not prey, not a mockery. He was a reminder, a warning, a symbol of what Earth truly was. The crowd could no longer laugh. They could no longer mock. Instead, they sat in silence. Their pride shaken, their certainty shattered. The revelation was clear. Humans were not weak because they broke. Humans were strong because they always rose again. And this one man, standing alone in the pit, had made an entire empire fall silent. The arena was no longer filled with laughter. Where once the alien warrior women had mocked, now they sat frozen. Their voices had turned to whispers, their cheers to silence. And in the middle of the sand stood one human, his grip steady on the glowing spear. The fallen warriors lay across the pit, breathing hard, their weapons abandoned. They had fought with power, with fury, with pride, but all of it had broken against the calm strength of a man they once called weak. General Kareth rose from her high balcony, her silver cape snapping in the dry wind. Her eyes burned with rage, but behind it there was something else, fear. She could not let this stand. She could not let one human shame an empire. Enough, she roared, her voice shaking the very walls. This ends now, I will fight him myself. The crowd gasped. Thousands rose to their feet. General Kareth, the undefeated leader, stepping into the pit was a sight few had ever seen. Her armor gleamed, her blade larger than most men. She leapt into the sand, her footsteps heavy, her presence crushing. The human stood still, watching her. His chest rose slowly, his eyes never leaving hers. He did not show fear, not even a flicker. Soraka's heart pounded in her chest. She knew what this meant if he lost here. His victories would be forgotten if he won. The empire itself might never recover from the shame. Kareth's voice thundered. You have tricked my warriors. You have humiliated them, but against me, human, you will die. She swung her blade, the sound cutting through the hot air. The ground trembled as she advanced. The crowd finally found their voices, screaming, Kareth! 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 But the human did not move. He gripped the glowing spear, lowered his stance, and waited. He was calm in the face of the storm. Then the clash began. Kareth struck with all her power, her blade crashing against the spear. Sparks flew, the sound echoing like thunder. The human's arm shook under the weight, but he held firm. He twisted, redirecting the strike. Stepping aside with perfect timing, the crowd gasped. Kareth's blade missed its mark, slicing only air. She spun, faster this time, but the human ducked, his spear striking upward. The glowing tip scraped across her armor, leaving a bright scar. Kareth snarled, her pride burning hotter than her fury. She swung again, harder, faster, each strike heavier than the last. The human blocked, dodged, and deflected. Every movement was tight, efficient, born from discipline. Minutes passed. The pit filled with dust and sparks. The crowd leaned forward, their chants dying, replaced by silence once more. For the first time, they saw Kareth pushed back, her strikes growing wild, her fury blinding her. The human's eyes never wavered. He was not stronger, not faster, but he was steady. Every mistake she made, he caught, every opening he saw. Then the moment came, Kareth roared. Lifting her blade high for a crushing blow, the human stepped in close. His spear twisting with one sharp movement. He locked her blade against his weapon. The force drove into the sand, sparks exploding as both weapons clashed. But the human pushed harder, twisting at just the right angle. The great blade slipped from Kareth's grip, falling heavy into the dirt. The arena gasped, the sound of steel striking the ground louder than any cheer. Kareth stumbled, her hands empty, her pride broken. The human raised the glowing spear, its tip hovering inches from her chest. The crowd held their breath, thousands of eyes fixed on that single moment. But he did not strike. He lowered the spear, stepping back, his voice calm but sharp. Strength without discipline is nothing. Power without control is weakness, that is why you fall. The silence that followed was heavier than stone. The crowd who once mocked him now stared in awe. The warriors who once laughed now sat pale and trembling. General Kareth fell to her knees, her fists digging into the sand. She had never been beaten, never been shamed, but here, before her entire empire, a human had brought her low. Soraka's eyes shone as she whispered, "They cannot laugh anymore, they cannot mock. He has silenced them all." The arena was quiet, not because they were forced, but because they could not speak. The pride of Zathra was broken. The sound of silence filled the galaxy, and at the center of it all stood one man from Earth, the human who made the warriors of an empire fall silent.
The arena of Zathra stood frozen. The dust had settled, the weapons lay silent, and the roar of the crowd had turned into something no one ever thought possible. Absolute silence. At the center of the pit stood one man, a human from a planet mocked as weak, holding the glowing spear that once belonged to his enemy. General Kareth knelt on the ground, her head bowed, her great blade buried in the sand. She had never been defeated before, yet now her strength, her pride, and her empire's laughter had all been shattered by a single human. The crowd of warrior women looked on with wide eyes, their hearts thundering. They wanted to shout, to deny, to cling to their pride, but no words came. Their throats were dry, their voices dead, for the truth stood before them, undeniable, unbreakable. The human lowered the glowing spear. He did not smile, he did not mock, he did not raise his hands in victory. Instead, he spoke, his voice carrying across the vast arena, calm but sharper than any blade. "You mocked us," he said. "You called us weak. You believed humans were nothing but fragile bones and soft flesh. But you do not understand Earth." His words echoed, bouncing against the stone walls. Thousands leaned forward, straining to hear every sound. "On Earth, we suffer storms. We survive hunger. We bleed in wars. We bury our dead and still stand again. We are not strong because we are unbroken. We are strong because we break. And we rise." The crowd trembled, their hands tightening on their weapons. They wanted to deny him, but deep inside, they knew he was right. For what kind of weakness could endure so much and still stand? General Kareth lifted her head, her voice hoarse. "You are only one man. How can one man silence an empire?" The human's eyes locked on hers. "I am only one, but I carry all of Earth inside me. Every soldier who fell, every mother who endured, every child who dreamed. That is what you face when you face a human. Not one man, but an entire history of survival." The silence deepened. Even Soraka, who had warned them, felt the weight of his words crash into her chest. Tears stung her eyes, not from shame, but from awe. The human turned slowly, looking at the thousands of warriors who filled the seats. He raised the spear high, its glowing crystal blazing under the suns, and his voice cut the silence once more. "Do not mistake patience for weakness. Do not mistake mercy for fear. Do not mistake silence for defeat. For when humans rise, when we fight, we do not stop until the world itself remembers our name." The words struck like thunder. The arena shook not from noise, but from the power of his truth. Every warrior woman felt the ground shift beneath her pride, their empire, their laughter, their mockery. All of it was ash before his fire. Soraka rose to her feet, her voice trembling but clear. He has shown us. He has revealed the truth. Earth is not to be mocked. Earth is to be respected. The crowd stirred, murmurs spreading like wildfire. For the first time in history, the warriors of Zaithra lowered their heads, not in shame alone, but in respect. General Kareth pushed herself to her feet, her shoulders heavy, her voice cracked as she spoke. "What is your name, human?" The man paused, his eyes still calm, his body still strong despite the wounds. He spoke one word, one name that carried across the galaxy. Earth. And with that, he dropped the glowing spear into the sand, turned his back on the Empire, and walked away. He did not need to stay. He did not need to finish them, because he had already won. The lesson was carved deep into their hearts. Strength is not measured by size, or numbers, or weapons. Strength is measured by will, by endurance, by the fire that refuses to die. The warriors of Zaithra never laughed at Earth again. Their songs, once filled with mockery, now carried warnings.